Midterm agendas for both Democrats and Republicans. Some Republicans in the Senate are open to revising the Electoral Count Act. It's seen by some as an acceptable alternative to Democrat-led voting initiatives. And California Governor Gavin Newsom visits an area strewn with undelivered parcels. Thousands of opened and damaged packages lay across railway tracks there in East Los Angeles. Video taken of the debris goes viral worldwide. With President Biden's one-year anniversary behind us, politicians are shifting focus to their midterm agendas. NTD's Jessica Beatty takes a look at the themes Democrats and Republicans are focusing on.
President Biden launched into his second year in office Thursday with a new focus, making fatigued Americans believe they're better off under his leadership.
For all the progress we made, we know it's still a very tough time for Americans. COVID-19, after 2 years, has worn people down. And inflation is taking a bite out of people's pocketbooks. But we have answers for that as well.
A year after taking office, Biden's average approval rating is just 42%, down 11%. That's according to 538. The drop in approval could be a problem for Democrats in the midterms. Now it seems Biden's planning to spend less time crafting legislation and more time speaking directly to Americans. He says Democrats have to offer a clearer contrast with Republicans going forward.
We proposed answers to the challenges we face. And that's the difference between us and the Republican Party. We know what we're for, but ask yourself the question. I was thinking about this the other day. What are Republicans for?
According to a recent Reuters Ipsos survey, the #1 issue Americans want Biden to address is the economy. And it looks like Republicans are making Biden's handling of the economy one of their midterm themes, too.
If we look at the accomplishments, we got an economy that is damaged.
Other Republican midterm themes include the chaotic exit from Afghanistan, the border and energy crises, and inflation.
We are now at a 40-year high of inflation in the United States. People are paying more for gas, for goods, for groceries, and a result that they've had to change the way they shop, the way they eat, the way they drive.
Republicans saying Biden's moved too far to the left.
This administration has been a failure, and I believe the only way they can fix and cure that is to quit listening to the far left, to get away from the radical agenda that is driving their decision-making process and come to the middle.
Republicans only need to flip a handful of seats in the House and one in the Senate to become the majority party. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The Electoral Count Act determines who becomes president, and now some Senate Republicans are open to changing it. This has been seen as an acceptable alternative to election law proposals like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Senator Mitch McConnell and other Senate Republicans are open to revising the Electoral Count Act passed in the 19th century. According to NPR, the law has been described as extremely complex and arcane and almost unintelligible. The act sees the Electoral College meet in each state in the U.S. and cast their votes for president, and the law allows Congress members to object to the electors' votes. This can prolong the counting process. The Republicans' openness to the revision comes after Democrats' efforts for voting law change were thwarted. Republicans filibustered both the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. Those acts saw the same fate as all other Democrat voting initiatives. Democrats then tried to get rid of the filibuster by a simple majority, but Democrats Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema voted against that move along with all Republicans. After the Democrats' efforts on voting law change failed, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tweeted, "Senate Democrats will keep fighting until the voting rights are protected for every single American." Since Republicans have opposed Democrat-led initiatives, what seems to be the only chance for bipartisan voting reform is by changing the Electoral Count Act, which controls how Congress deals with presidential election disputes. The act was passed after the electoral crisis of 1876. That was when the states sent competing slates of electors to Washington. So the act laid out basic guidelines for counting procedures and said that states need to handle electoral disputes on their own. The way the revision will be done is still being hammered out, and while some Republicans have expressed a willingness to revise it, only a few have fully committed to the plan. The U.S. Supreme Court again declined to intervene in a lawsuit challenging a Texas abortion ban. The law went into effect in September and banned abortions after a heartbeat is detected, which is usually at around 6 weeks. On the same day the law first went into effect, the Supreme Court denied an effort to block the measure in a 5-4 ruling. An abortion provider argued the law violates the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision and the 1992 Planned Parenthood v. Casey decision. The latest move by the U.S. Supreme Court effectively allows the abortion ban to remain in place while legal action continues. The case now goes to the Texas Supreme Court. Currently, there is no timetable for when the Texas Supreme Court will take up the case. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he would sign a law prohibiting abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The bill survived a committee vote on January 19th. It could mark a turning point in pro-life efforts in Florida. Abortion bans have failed over the years in Florida, with some never making it out of committee. The bill's sponsor says abortion should be limited because of medical advancements since the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. She also says the bill cannot be called an abortion ban because it still allows abortions up to 15 weeks. The current law allows abortions through the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. The Florida bill closely mirrors a Mississippi law that the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments on in December. Justices expect to have a ruling by spring. The result could impact the success of the Florida law. 6 states now have fully vaccinated more than 3/4 of their population, which means they have received their first 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine. According to the latest data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, those states include Connecticut, Hawaii, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Vermont. The percentage of people in the U.S. who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 is now more than 63%, and about 1/4 of the total U.S. population is fully vaccinated and boosted. However, there is still nearly 20% of the eligible population who have not received any dose of COVID-19 vaccine. In Alabama, Mississippi, Idaho, and Wyoming, less than half of the eligible population is fully vaccinated. Non-U.S. travelers entering the country will need to be fully vaccinated starting tomorrow. The Department of Homeland Security says essential travelers crossing into the U.S. via land ports of entry and ferry terminals must show proof of vaccination. The Biden administration opened its borders with Canada and Mexico to non-essential travelers who are fully vaccinated in early November. The DHS said that it would extend the requirement to essential travelers in early January. Essential travelers have been allowed to enter the U.S. throughout the pandemic. American citizens and permanent residents do not need to show proof of vaccination if entering via land or ferry. COVID tests are not required. Oregon Army National Guard soldiers are being deployed to help at hospitals around the state. That's as the local healthcare system deals with staffing shortages caused by the Omicron variant. Here's more.
7 National Guard soldiers were assigned to West Valley Hospital in Dallas, Oregon this week. They'll help with everything from COVID-19 testing, moving patients, to helping at front desks.
We also have 10 open staffing positions, open nursing positions just within my 2 departments. And there's 15 departments within this hospital. So not only are we seeing higher volumes, we're also having some issues with staffing. So those are all reasons why having you guys here with us is so incredibly important, and we thank you so much.
The state hopes to place 1,200 Guard members in approximately 40 hospitals across Oregon to address urgent non-clinical staffing shortages. Other states are also using the National Guard to supplement strained hospital personnel.
And now we have an update on the opioid crisis gripping the nation. In Wisconsin, Eau Claire County is set to receive a settlement of over $3 million. It's part of a nationwide settlement against opioid producers. I wanted to learn more about the opioid crisis, so I spoke with Dr. Paul Christo. He's a professor at Johns Hopkins Medicine and host of the radio show Aches and Gains. He says there is a link between the number of opioid overdose deaths and the COVID pandemic.
I think there definitely is. And the link is sort of twofold. One, during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of economic hardship, underemployment, unemployment, which has led to a high degree of stress. And 2, we've seen a lot of psychological turmoil that has occurred during COVID-19. That also has led to an undue amount of stress. That is, people have seen friends, family members get sick from COVID-19, require hospitalization, ICU, and even die.
So over 100,000 Americans have died in the last year due to opioids. I mean, this fentanyl, the synthetic opioid, has played a large role in that. What can be done about this?
Well, it's, yes, over 100,000 overdose deaths, and about 50 to 60% of those are due to fentanyl. Not all of them, but a large portion of them are. And, fentanyl is especially lethal because it's so potent. It's about 80 to 100 times more potent than morphine. So if you ingest just a little bit of it, say you ingest it intravenously or intranasally, it can lead to death very quickly.
The Iowa Attorney General, Tom Miller, has said that his state has seen an increase in the number of fentanyl-related deaths. Are there certain areas of the country that have been hit harder than others?
There are certain states that have, but honestly, I think this is a national problem. We're seeing, California, for example, specifically San Diego, get hard hit, even areas of Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and, up near you, New York. So I don't know that any area is spared in particular.
So what are the steps that the government, on the state level or the federal level, are taking to combat the crisis?
Well, some good steps. So, for example, I think President Biden has increased access to the opioid reversal drug called naloxone across the country. And that's important because naloxone, also known as Narcan, is the opioid reversal agent. It saves lives, no question. All you have to do is basically inject it. It's a spray, it's a nasal spray, and you can inject it into the nostril of someone who's overdosing and save his or her life.
Now, there are reports of a doctor prescribing over 20,000 slips for opioids. Is this a common phenomenon where doctors are just writing these out left and right?
I don't think so at all. I really, over the last, since 2016, I think physicians, other healthcare providers have been very, very vigilant about when they prescribe opioids and for whom. So we've seen a 40% decrease in prescription opioids over the last 4 to 5 years. So I really think what we're seeing now is the illegal use of opioids rather than the use of opioids legitimately to treat chronic pain.
Paul, in light of all this, what advice do you have for Americans?
I think don't give up. If you have a friend or a family member that has the disease of addiction or that may be abusing a substance, take advantage of the primary care doctor, take advantage of the American Psychological Association website, or go to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration 800 number for support.
That number is 1-800-662-HELP or 1-800-662-4357. Dr. Christo offers a reason why there are more fentanyl overdose deaths. He says it's because the synthetic opioid has become more available than others, but he says they've seen other substances on the rise, such as methamphetamines. And he says what's known as polypharmacy is contributing to overdoses too. That's when a user combines drugs like fentanyl and cocaine. Federal regulators announced approval for a planned $10 billion train tunnel. It will run under the Hudson River. The long-delayed project is a major part of an effort to transform rail travel in the Northeast. The Federal Transit Administration has now made the project eligible for federal grants. The move comes after years of disagreement between the federal government and New York and New Jersey over funding for the tunnel. Funding will now come from money earmarked for rail projects in the recently passed $1 trillion infrastructure bill. The existing tunnel is more than 110 years old and prone to problems and delays due to crumbling walls and aging wiring. Saltwater intrusion from Superstorm Sandy in 2012 made the situation even worse. The new tunnel would be built parallel to the existing one. Once construction begins, the project could take as long as 7 years to complete. California's Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday visited an area covered in undelivered packages. There, in East Los Angeles, thousands of opened and damaged parcels sprawl out over railway tracks. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
Video taken of the debris went viral worldwide. Much of the footage was from drone shots, which showed the extent of the looting. Newsom spoke to reporters gathered by the train track.
I see what you see, I see what you've been covering, I see what everybody's seen, and asking myself, what the hell is going on? I mean, look like a third world country, these images, the drone images that were on the nightly news, day in and day out. Some networks weaponizing them for their own, political agenda, and others just reporting the damn news, fairly and appropriately.
Newsom held a press briefing alongside members of representatives from Railroad Hauling Company Union Pacific and the Los Angeles County Supervisor, Hilda Solis, as well as a number of federal agents.
And then the question you're going to ask is the question I'm asking, trust me, to every single person behind me. How do we make sure we don't have to keep coming back? How do we secure this site? How do we do a better job in making sure that this doesn't have to continue to happen.
Transport crews will continue cleanup efforts in the area in the coming days, while California Highway Patrol will coordinate with law enforcement to help prevent theft on the railways. Newsom said 280 people have been arrested, and more are being pursued. He said investigators are targeting the fencing operations that sell the goods. Authorities said thieves have hit cargo containers aboard trains for months. The stolen packages are from retailers including Amazon, REI, and others. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The family of a fallen Marine is suing actor Alec Baldwin for defamation and negligence. Lance Corporal Riley McCullum died last August during the suicide bomber attack in Afghanistan. Baldwin reached out to the family and sent a $5,000 check to McCullum's sister, Royce McCullum, for McCullum's pregnant widow. Then, on January 3rd, Royce posted a photo of Washington, D.C. on her Instagram page, indicating that she had been a part in the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. Baldwin saw her post and messaged Royce on Instagram, saying he didn't know she was a January 6th rioter. Royce responded by saying she attended the protest but was never arrested or charged. Baldwin reposted her photo on Instagram, and McCullum's family filed suit Monday in Wyoming. The lawsuit alleges that soon after Baldwin reposted the photo, Royce and her family began to get hateful messages and death threats. The suit says Baldwin is keenly aware of the weight of his fame and notoriety, and that by posting, his commentary would result in the onslaught of threats and hatred that it did. According to the court filing, the family is asking for a trial by jury and $25 million plus the cost of legal fees. Still to come, a new study may have good news for young children with peanut allergies and their parents. It proves that if treated at an early age, kids can build up a tolerance and reduce their bad reactions. The NBA celebrates its 75th season. The league has experienced tremendous change, especially since the 1980s, when many arenas were half empty or worse on game nights. All that and more here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products now, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regularly $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to MyPillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive offers. Thank you and God bless.
Another recall, this time frozen chopped spinach. Frozen Food Development is recalling specific lots of Little Brand 12-ounce packages of frozen spinach. The recall is for a possible Listeria contamination. The greens were sold in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. The batches of spinach have a best-by date of September 10th, 2023. The announcement says you can return it to the place you bought it for a refund. No illnesses have been reported. Peanut allergies can be a source of stress for parents of young children. Now, a new study provides evidence that some kids might be able to overcome those allergies if treated at a very young age.
A new study is offering a window of opportunity to cure toddlers' peanut allergies if treated early in their disease course.
This study was about trying to find a way to intervene early in the life of children and toddlers, 1 to 3-year-olds, that had peanut allergy.
The study's co-author, Dr. Stacy Jones, said the tested kids took protein powder to build up their tolerance. After 2.5 years, over 70% were able to consume the equivalent of 16 peanuts. 6 months after the treatment ended, the tolerance remained for more than 20% of children.
Probably the biggest, most important take-home we feel in this study is the remission. And remission occurred, that has been defined in the past, and that was defined as being off of therapy for 6 months and still being able to pass that food challenge.
Peanut allergies are usually lifelong and don't go away, though it's possible for kids to heal naturally without intervention. But the study lends confidence to allergists who are considering this treatment for young children.
We believe that this lays the groundwork for this tremendous potential, again, this window of opportunity that we need to delve into more before this should be considered a standard of care in peanut allergy.
Dr. Jones is now looking at long-term studies to see how lasting their allergen tolerance could be and what could be done if it declines.
As hard a year as 2021 was, a lot of people were apparently in the mood to celebrate. The world bought more champagne last year than ever. We're talking billions worth of bubbly. Sales and exports set new records despite pandemic lockdowns that forced the closure of many bars and restaurants. Trade association Comité Champagne says France exported a record 180 million bottles of champagne in 2021, a 38% increase over 2020. As for global sales, they hit a record too, totaling $6.2 billion. Those numbers are surprising, considering tourism and event planning have been down due to the pandemic. In a statement, Comité Champagne offered a possible explanation. People are just drinking more at home. The 1980s was a transformative decade for the NBA, and now the league is celebrating its 75th season.
And the Virginia Squires.
The NBA had enormous problems. Many arenas were half empty or worse on game nights. Most franchises were losing money. Some were on the cusp of folding. And when games were on television, nobody was watching. The springboard for much of that growth can be traced back to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. But there were stars in all corners of the country. Julius Erving in Philadelphia, Dominique Wilkins in Atlanta, Jack Sikma in Seattle, and by the midpoint of the decade, Michael Jordan was headed to Chicago. But the respect Bird and Johnson had for one another demonstrated on a national platform how people of different races and backgrounds can compete and still coexist.
Being able to market Larry Bird and Magic and the other great teams, we just had a way of overcoming a lot of what was going on in society.
Pulling it all together for the country to witness was David Stern. He became NBA commissioner in 1984, inheriting control of a league some in corporate America thought was not mainstream enough to command a significant piece of the sports landscape. Stern knew for the game to grow, it had to get on television, especially with cable beginning to take root at that time.
We are where we are today. I think the owners jumped on board because of the trust they had in David Stern. And so David had a great run, passed it on to Adam Silver, and he's keeping it going.
The average player's salary in 1980 was around $180,000. By the end of the decade, it was around $900,000. Today's average salary is around $8 million. What teams are worth and what players make have soared ever since. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Inflation is rising much faster than salaries. According to the Anderson Economic Group, the price of new cars increased by nearly 12% from December 2020 to December 2021, but wages rose less than 5% during that same time period. That means the average American needs to work 3 weeks more during the year in order to afford a typical new vehicle. For a used car, they would need to work 5 weeks more compared to a year ago. The Anderson Economic Group used Bureau of Labor Statistics data and the Consumer Price Index to make these comparisons. It's impossible to predict where home prices are going to go in the future, but one thing is for certain. Interest rates are on the rise, and that's making real estate more expensive to buy.
Stu! Hey man, welcome.
Stu Kozlowski is on the hunt again.
Here we have 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
He's looking for a home in Los Angeles for himself and his 8-year-old daughter after he fell out of escrow on another property last month.
How many square feet is it?
Besides worrying about square footage, there's low inventory, sky-high prices, and bidding wars. And now, rising mortgage rates.
They're almost a point higher than they were when I made that offer and got under escrow. So that's a significant jump.
This week, a 30-year fixed-rate loan is 3.56%, back up to pre-pandemic levels. On the median home price of $350,000, Americans can expect to spend $120 more on average, excluding taxes and insurance, than they did a year ago.
I think that affects the kind of homes I look at, that affects the neighborhoods I look at, that affects the kind of things I'm willing to go and have conviction about that maybe I didn't a month ago or a week ago.
Mortgage rates are going up in anticipation of higher interest rates, which the Federal Reserve said would happen this year. In just the last month, a 30-year mortgage rose by 0.5 point.
Every 0.5 point the mortgage rates rise, I think that definitely has an impact on what buyers are willing to do, how far they're willing to stretch on home purchase.
Rising rates will affect home buyers in pricier coastal cities, where they're more often right on the cusp of qualifying for a home mortgage. In Chicago, where realtors say there's more inventory, it means locking in a good mortgage rate now.
You don't want to pay more money if you don't have to, so that's kind of why we did decide to go through the pre-approval process earlier, so that way if we did find something, we could jump on it.
Mary Kate O and her husband are first-time home buyers, working against two timelines: their lease is up in 6 months and rising mortgage rates.
We've definitely been kind of accelerating that timeline a little bit more recently. What's the price on this one?
This one's $950.
Her realtor, Tony Matar, says rising rates are bringing up FOMO among many of his first-time buyers. That's fear of missing out.
There might be some folks out there who were considering buying a home 6 months or 9 months ago and didn't, that might be kicking themselves.
Pushing buyers to move quickly before mortgage rates and home prices get any higher.
Plans have been laid for a unique new film studio, one that will get Hollywood stars a lot closer to the actual stars. Variety magazine reports that Space Entertainment Enterprise, the company co-producing Tom Cruise's upcoming space movie, plans to launch a zero-gravity production studio. On top of that, the company wants the module to contain a sports and entertainment arena, as well as a content studio. It's called SEE1, and the company is planning to build it by December of 2024. The Sky High studio will host anyone in entertainment and sports who wants to work in a low-orbit microgravity environment, all those who can afford it anyway. The Enterprise, or SEE, will also produce its own content and host its own events. Axiom Space will handle the construction of the studio. That's the same company that last year won NASA's approval to build a commercial component of the International Space Station. Just how far will China take its so-called zero-COVID policy, and how tough will lockdown measures get inside the country? A group chat among residents from one neighborhood in the city of Xi'an lists reason why people ought to follow the rules or else.
Within the message group, a post cites 10 reasons to stay in line. Most of them highlight the consequences of violating stay-at-home orders. Topping the list, the first warning reads, "Your home will be surrounded by police cars and ambulances and will be sealed." Next, the post warns that pandemic control staff will come for anyone who breaks the rules and will take him or her away. But worth noting, the post doesn't actually use the term pandemic control staff. Instead, it references masked white robes. The full warning reads, "You will be dragged away by masked white robes like butchers who slaughter pigs." The post also addresses men's best friend. It states that rule breakers' pets will be slaughtered. It goes on to cite official policy wording, describing a treatment to make pets harmless. Like many of the list's other warnings, reports at least one related case surfaced back in November in eastern China. A woman there was taken to a no pets allowed quarantine site and had to leave her dog at home. She had had the pet for 5 years. The health workers promised not to harm the dog. But while watching a remote feed from a camera inside her home, she witnessed 2 men in protective suits entering the space. Once inside, they cornered her pet, hitting it with what looks like an iron rod. The dog is seen trying to get away, but wasn't successful. Then the men later bagged the animal in plastic. After the incident, the pet owner shared the tragic video online. Uproar soon exploded online. Amid the criticism, authorities posted a notice saying, "Workers on site treated the dog to make it harmless without thorough communication with the netizen, the dog owner." As for the remainder of the group chat's warning list, one point notes that officials may choose to quarantine apartment buildings, communities, or even entire towns, all if just a single person violates lockdown orders. While the final consequence describes going through quarantine without smartphones or other devices, as officials may decide to confiscate them.
Just ahead, a last-ditch attempt is underway in Geneva to ease tensions along the Ukrainian border, but the Russian side says talks with the U.S. won't yield a breakthrough. And Rio Tinto faces a major setback in becoming Europe's largest lithium supplier. That's after Serbia revoked the company's exploration license over environmental concerns. All that and more here at NTD News.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interest, and we never will be. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today to our digital edition at theepochtimes.com and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. Read the difference on all your devices. We'd love to have you on board.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
The weeks-long standoff over Ukraine is on a critical cusp. As the United States and Russia begin talks in Geneva, both sides are downplaying the prospect of quickly resolving their differences over Ukraine.
Sergey, thank you very much. A high-stakes meeting between top U.S. and Russian diplomats is underway in Geneva, a last-ditch effort to avert crisis on the Ukrainian border. In his opening remarks, Secretary of State Antony Blinken again warned of serious consequences if Russia invades.
We are, all of us, equally committed to the path of diplomacy and dialogue to try to resolve our differences. But we're also committed, if that proves impossible, and Russia decides to pursue aggression against Ukraine, to a united, swift, and severe response.
While Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is reiterating the call for a concrete response to Moscow's security demands, he says he expects no breakthrough from the meeting. But the U.S. side still wants diplomacy to ease soaring tensions.
This is a critical moment. You're right. We don't expect to resolve our differences here today, but I do hope and expect that we can test whether the path of diplomacy, of dialogue remains open. We're committed to walking that path and to resolving our differences peacefully, and I hope we can test that proposition today.
Russia still calls for a series of binding security guarantees, including a ban on Ukraine's membership into NATO. Moscow has consistently denied planning an attack, but said it could take unspecified military action if those demands are not met. Former U.S. Ambassador to Georgia, Ian Kelly, says the diplomatic door is only slightly open over Ukraine talks.
And I say that it's only open a crack because I don't really see much, or if any, room to negotiate any of these demands or ultimatums that the Russians have put on the table.
President Biden hinted earlier at a more measured response if Russia decides on a minor incursion. But Kelly called the comment a faux pas, and the White House later tried to walk back the remark.
And now let's look to possible reasons why Putin feels so strongly about Ukraine. Why has he chosen to bring the crisis to a head?
Why is Russia's Putin so focused on Ukraine? Ukraine has become the main flashpoint in Russia's relations with the West, after a series of tough statements from President Vladimir Putin and a build-up of tens of thousands of Russian troops near its border.
If Russia further invades Ukraine, there will be significant costs and consequences.
Russia will be held accountable if it invades.
The risk of a conflict is real.
This is an extremely dangerous situation. We're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack.
Here are 3 reasons why Putin feels so strongly about Ukraine and has chosen to bring the crisis to a head. With the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union, Russia lost control of 14 former republics it had previously dominated. But the loss of Ukraine was the bitterest pill. Many Russians feel a connection with Ukraine that they do not feel towards other former Soviet states. The two had been linked since the 9th century and speak closely related languages. Putin has said Russians and Ukrainians were one people who shared a single historic and spiritual space. Since the Cold War ended, NATO has expanded eastwards by taking in 14 new countries, including states that were once in the Soviet Union. For Russia, this was a threatening encroachment towards its borders.
The build-up of the United States and NATO's forces next to the Russian borders is of great concern.
While Ukraine is not a NATO member, it has a promise it will eventually get to join. Since toppling a pro-Russian president in 2014, it has moved closer to the West and staged joint military exercises with NATO. Putin says Ukraine's growing ties with the alliance could make it a launchpad for NATO missiles targeted at Russia. He wants security guarantees from the West, including the rescinding of NATO's membership promise to Kiev. As a leader who tolerates virtually no domestic opposition, Putin has a strong aversion to revolutions in neighboring countries that could encourage protests in Russia. Ukraine is potentially threatening for Putin if it inspires Russians with a pro-Western vision. Keeping the West guessing about a possible invasion of Ukraine has put Russia high on the international agenda and forced US President Joe Biden to re-engage with Putin in a video call in December. In a recent interview, Putin mourned the collapse of the Soviet Union as the demise of historical Russia. Some analysts argue such statements suggest Putin sees Ukraine as unfinished business and wants to follow the seizure of Crimea, which boosted his popularity in Russia, to bring part or all of Ukraine back under Moscow's rule.
Shares in Rio Tinto tumbled today after Serbia revoked its lithium exploration licenses over environmental concerns. The move hurts the miner's ambition to become Europe's largest supplier of the metal used in electric vehicles.
Serbia has dealt a big blow to Rio Tinto, the Anglo-Australian mining giant, by scrapping the company's plans for a lithium mine. It's a project valued at $2.4 billion, and lithium is a key component for electric car batteries. It comes days after the high-profile deportation of Serbian tennis star Novak Djokovic from Australia over his vaccination status. That event has left ties between Australia and Serbia in tatters. Serbia's decision also comes with its general elections only months away, and after a series of angry protests against the mine on environmental grounds. Prime Minister Ana Brnabić said just last week that a decision for Rio would not be made until after April's vote, before announcing the surprise U-turn on Thursday.
We have fulfilled all the requests of the ecology-related protests, and we put a full stop to the Rio Tinto issue in the Republic of Serbia.
Canberra did not immediately comment on the decision. The news is a big setback for Rio's hopes that the project would catapult it to the world's top 10 biggest lithium producers, as well as Europe's largest supplier. It said it was, quote, extremely concerned by the decision and was reviewing the legal basis for it. The Serbian mine is currently Rio's only lithium project and was planned to start production in 5 years. It announced a month ago a deal to buy a second lithium asset worth more than $800 million as it looks to build its business for battery materials. Lithium is in high demand amid the electric vehicle boom. A global shortage in the mineral has led to record prices in recent years. Shares in Rio fell as much as 4.8% in the Australian stock market on Friday, its worst drop since August last year.
Austria gets closer to implementing a compulsory COVID-19 mandate for vaccinations for most adults. The country's lower house of government voted in favor of the proposal. The mandate is now expected to pass Parliament's upper house before being signed by the country's president. The move would make Austria the first EU nation to impose such a mandate, and comes despite large-scale demonstrations across the country. If passed, it would mean that adults age 18 and over would need to be vaccinated against COVID-19 starting in February. Pregnant women, those who cannot be vaccinated for medical reasons, and individuals who recovered from the virus in the past 6 months would be exempt. The government says every Austrian household would be notified about the mandatory vaccination via direct mail. Unvaccinated Austrians would receive reminders every 6 months after an introductory phase. Officials will also check the vaccination status of Austrians via traffic stops and other methods. Those who fail to present proof of vaccination could face a fine of up to $4,000. Roughly 74% of the Austrian population is fully vaccinated. France has approved its vaccine pass law. Starting Monday, anyone over the age of 16 must have proof of full COVID-19 vaccination to access a wide range of everyday activities, including visiting restaurants and bars, as well as long-distance transportation. A negative PCR test will no longer be accepted. The pass will affect around 5.5 million people who remain unvaccinated in the country. Up next, Chanel builds a new complex to house 10 prestigious workshops that specialize in various French luxury crafts. Employees are enjoying the new space, saying they have more opportunities to collaborate. All that and more after this short break. Fashion brand Chanel is opening a new studio complex in Paris. It houses around a dozen prestigious workshops that create handmade crafts for couture houses and luxury clients. Let's take a look.
Chanel opened 19M, a new studio complex that houses 600 employees from 10 accessory suppliers. The workshops there create shoes, gloves, hats, embroidery, feathers, fabrics, and other handmade crafts. One of them is Maison Massereau, a shoe workshop founded in 1894.
Workshop was adjoined to Chanel in 2002, and now we have a new home in 19M. And we're delighted because there's a lot of space, a lot of light. And we can work easily with other artisans because we're in the same place. So we often work together in collaboration for clients or for the designers.
Maison Massereau's collaboration with Chanel dates back to the 1950s. It had helped Gabriel Chanel create the classic black toe-tipped slingback. One of Massereau's shoe pattern makers says, now that they're in this new complex, they can easily design shoes with embroidery, flowers, or buckles by calling on other artisans in the complex.
We would have this magnificent place with a lot of light. We have huge ateliers with all the new technologies. So for us, it's really wonderful. I think there's no other atelier like this in France. So it's a real opportunity.
Maison Lissage is a workshop that creates intricate embroidery works for the top couture houses. Its artisan director says it's an enormous gift for them to be able to work in the new space.
It was ordered by Chanel to put together several artistic professions and to create synergy between them. It is really amazing because if you need to work on jewelry, for instance, with Goossens, you don't have to cross from one side of Paris to another. You just knock on the next door and it's done.
The triangular complex is 270,000 square feet in size and was designed by French-Italian architect Rudy Ricciardi. It's located in northern Paris in the city's 19th district. The name 19M in French can also refer to the 19th district. French President Emmanuel Macron officially inaugurated the building Thursday afternoon.
Adele tearfully apologized to fans. She said she and her team were unable to put her show together. She had been set to hold a 3-month residency in Las Vegas. It would have included her first live appearance since 2017.
Hi, listen, I'm so sorry, but my show ain't ready. We've tried absolutely everything that we can to put it together in time and for it to be good enough for you, but we've been absolutely destroyed by delivery delays and COVID. Half my crew, half my team are down with COVID, they still are. And it's been impossible to finish the show.
Adele saying sorry 8 times in her 92-second message to her fans. She says she'll put the complete show together and reschedule the show dates. The concerts were set to start today. The shows were to follow Adele's latest album, 30. It debuted at #1 in 30 countries in November. Concert residencies in Las Vegas are a major attraction for musicians who do not want to travel extensively. Celine Dion, Katy Perry, Carrie Underwood, Usher, Barry Manilow, and Shania Twain are among the top acts to have recently scheduled multiple concert dates in Las Vegas. On today's health segment, we're going to look at the top reasons why you should be eating olives. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Olives are rich in healthy fats. They are also rich in antioxidant and anti-inflammatory phytonutrients. Olives are one of the oldest cultivated trees worldwide. The oldest known tree is thought to be between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. The tree, which is located on the island of Crete, still produces olives. It acts as a symbol of everything olives stand for: longevity, prosperity, and peace. Humans have been embracing olives for food, medicine, and cosmetics for centuries. Whether you prefer to consume olives as an oil or in their whole form, there are many reasons to make them a regular part of your diet. Eating olives may play a role in reducing nearly 200 diseases and can provide a number of health benefits. These are just a few. Let's look at how they support heart health. Olives are well known for their heart protective properties. They are largely responsible for the reduction of heart disease and oxidative stress seen among those following a Mediterranean diet. In the Mediterranean diet, olive oil is used as a primary source of fat. Olives prevent oxidative stress, they support healthy blood pressure, and they lower inflammation. Let's look at how olives shorter upper respiratory infections. Olive leaf extract is another of the olive plant's claim to fame. Its notable polyphenols have antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties. When a group of high school athletes with suboptimal diets were given an olive leaf extract supplement, they experienced a 28% reduction in sick days for respiratory illness. This suggests that olive leaf helped to decrease the duration of infection. Let's look at the anti-diabetic effects of olives. Consumption of olive oil is linked to a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. It also improves glucose metabolism. One of the primary polyphenols in olive oil is known to improve lipid profile and insulin sensitivity. It also reduces oxidative and inflammatory processes. There are more than 1,000 olive varieties, but about 140 of them make up about 85% of the worldwide olive production. When choosing olives, look for those processed using traditional curing instead of live processing, which will maximize both the health potential and the flavor.
A northern German zoo welcomes new members, 2 polar bear cubs. Their birth is good news for the zoo. The last polar bear born there was in 2014. The tiny, furless babies were born in Rostock Zoo on November 14th. Weighing less than 2 pounds, they look nothing like their 7-year-old mother, Sizzle. During pregnancy, she weighed over 1,000 pounds. Zoo officials say the mother's doing a great job taking care of her babies. After a well-deserved rest, the family is now exposed to the inquisitive eyes of the public. Polar bear cubs usually grow their fur within a week of birth, and about 3 weeks later, they open their eyes. Fewer than 300 polar bears now live in zoos worldwide, about 23,000 in the wild. Experts warn that if warming continues at this rate, polar bears could disappear from the planet by the end of the century. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter.